Welcome to a Yoga Pilates fusion class. So I'm going to throw in some little like Halloween touches, some little occasional kind of silly stuff, but hopefully you'll go along with me on it. And if not, you're at your house and I won't know. So it's all good. So we're going to start in a customary way. We're going to start lying down on the back so that we can pay attention to the breath, get a little movement in the ribs. Hopefully unwind a little tension out of the shoulders. You can do that by simply lying down, or you can add something underneath you. So I'm gonna today use 2 yoga blocks. I like one block to go sideways so that both my shoulder blades rest on it, and I usually do that at the low, however short the block is. This one's 4 inches. I do it as low as possible. And then I like a block for my head to be a little bit higher. If you want it to be a little bit more like a fish pose, you can have the head drop back onto the floor, or you can lower the block 1 notch so that it's all even. Another thing that we might want to have for the early part of this is a strap. So if you have a yoga strap, grab it. If you don't, and you know you can hold onto your big toe while you're laying on your back, then you might be fine. But otherwise, grab something you can grab your foot with. I've used even kitchen towels, dog leashes, whatever you got. Okay, so once you've got those things, whatever you want to do for your back, you can use a blanket or a pillow instead of the blocks. Then get yourself into position. Now, if you're using something that's really firm, like the yoga blocks, you want it to be just under the shoulder blades. And I try to get my shoulder blades kind of jiggled onto the block. I don't really want the end of the block to go much past the very bottom edge of my shoulder blade, because, make sure your mic is muted if you came in a little later. The reason is that if it's too low, it just basically just pokes me in the back or in between 2 ribs. And if I could get my shoulder blades positioned on it, the weight of my upper body on this block gets distributed, and it's much more comfortable. So if you do this, if you lie down on blocks and it feels really horribly uncomfortable, definitely put the block up a little higher. Just kind of try to get it organized right under your shoulder blades. Now, this is much more dramatic for me. I'm feeling a lot more spiciness around the shoulders. So I'm hanging out with my legs bent for now so I can let the shoulders kind of relax a bit. Blanket is a much more mild sensation, which sometimes I prefer. Now you can also stretch the legs all the way out, and that does make it a little more fish posy. If you aren't familiar with the fish pose, basically take a cobra pose and turn it upside down, and that's a fish pose. So we're kind of trying to feel that same broadening across the chest, the same sort of lifting or pressing forward through the breastbone. Although in this way, a little less extreme than being held the more traditional way, I suppose. You could also put your feet together with the little knees open like butterfly wings, and that might feel nice. So you're welcome to that option as well. And then all we're doing is breathing. I'm trying to let the mind get centered. So we might still be sort of tugged into dreamy spaces. If we just woke up a little while ago, we might be already on our daily agenda of planning for things, creating things and making lists. And so we'll just let the mind sort of settle here in the moment. I like to scan through my body and just check in. Take about 5 more breaths here. I'm consciously trying to expand through my ribs, just to create more movement there in the intercostal muscles between the ribs. starting in a position like this, with a little bit of an elevation to the spine, is that it tends to free some of the tension that I hold in the front shoulder stabilizers. And it feels like my arm bone kind of settles back into the socket a little bit nicer. So we're going to see if that worked out for you guys as well. I'm going to do one more big breath. And then returning my feet to the floor just so it's easier to kind of push myself over. I'm going to roll off the blocks and get them out from under me, and then I'm going to roll back. Now, I generally find that as soon as I come back down onto the floor, the sensation is quite pleasant. It's a kind of widening, softening sensation. It feels like my shoulders have gotten a little broader. And overall, it feels quite nice. Now, if that's not true for you, then may I suggest this possibility. So if you take your arm and stretch it up so that the shoulder blade kind of wraps around the edge a little bit and gets out of the middle of the back, you can kind of massage right where that block was by kind of rocking back and forth. And that's quite nice. All right. So, it's like there's small furry creatures running everywhere. So we're going to take a few moments with just kind of hanging out with this constructive rest position, and we'll do a little release for the hip while we're here. So feet are about hips distance apart. I'm just letting my upper body sort of continue to soften into the floor. You're going to pick up the toes on one foot, and the idea is to glide the foot out, but if you've got a little resistance on your mat, you might have to do just a little bit of a hover, and then we're going to glide the foot back, okay, as the least amount of muscular energy here. So really subtle, kind of picking the toes up, glide the foot out. Stretch through the leg. So we're trying to make that leg a little longer, and then we're going to just glide it on back. We're going to do that one more time, straight up and down. So the toes point up toward the ceiling, just gliding that leg out, reaching out nice and long. Okay, so now we're going to add onto it with some little abdominal curls. Now the idea with the abdominal curls is we're going to try to initiate all of that action from the abdominals and not from the neck trying to lift itself up off the floor. So with the hands behind the head, toes straight up, we're going to glide the leg out, stretch through the leg, and then we're going to bring the knee in and then curl up toward it. So back to neutral, glide the leg out, stretch through the leg, and then bring the knee in. Okay, glide the leg out, stretch through the leg, and then bring the knee in. All right, so now we're going to glide the leg out, then you're going to externally rotate it. Turn the toes towards the right, bring the knee towards that right elbow as you curl in. Put it back to the center, glide it out, stretch through the front of the hip, rotate it outward, bring the knee towards the right elbow. And then one more time, once the leg is settled, glide the leg out, stretch through the hip, rotate outward, bring the knee up. Okay, so then we'll do an internal rotation. So gliding the leg out, turning inwardly, then we're going to take the left elbow and the right knee and bring them toward each other. Put the leg back down in the center, glide it out right in the center, stretch through the hip, rotate inwardly, little twist. And then one more time, glide the leg out, stretch through the hip, rotate inwardly, bring the leg across. Okay, so just pausing for a moment. So we're going to let this right leg settle, just let that hip relax. We're going to take this left hip, do a similar thing. So just toes up, glide the leg out, and all we're doing is gliding out, feeling the front of that hip stretch, and then gliding back for 3 rounds, okay? So glide the leg out as best you can, we're just sliding. Stretch through the hip, glide the leg back. And then one more time, gliding it out. Bringing it back, and then adding those little abdominal curls. So leg glides out, stretch through the hip, knee comes in, curl it in. Glide the leg out. Curl in. Glide the leg out. Curl in. So this is the external rotation. So we're going to glide out straight up and down, stretch the front of the hip, then rotate the leg out, bring the knee towards the left elbow. So leg rests, glide out, stretch, rotate, bring it to the knee, or bring the elbow to the knee to the elbow, whichever way. Stretch out down the center, last one of these. Rotate outward. All right, so once we're back in the middle, we've got the weight of the leg resting. We're going to glide the leg back out, stretch through the front of the hip, rotate inwardly a little, and then we're going to bring that knee across to the right. Glide out, toes pointing straight up. Feel that stretch, then rotate in. And then one more time, we're going to glide out. Stretch through the front of the hip, rotate in, and add your curl. And then once you're there where your legs are both resting again in that constructive rest position, just pause for a moment. You could do little windshield wipers if you like. Otherwise, you can just relax. Now we're going to take hold of the right leg. The strap is going to be helpful. So I'm going to let my left leg just rest in the stretched out position. You can leave your left leg in that constructive rest if you like. So holding onto the right leg, giving my foot a bit of a spin, and then go in the other direction. If holding onto the back of the thigh doesn't feel that good, you can let go a little bit or hug it in tighter, whatever is preferable. And then we're going to point and flex. So we're going to take hold of the foot with the strap, or you can hold onto your big toe with your hand if you've got the room for it, and then we'll extend this leg out, okay? So I'm going to make a loop here that I can hold on to. You can hold on to the end of the strap or wrap it around your wrist. If you've got a loop, you can do that. So we're just going to pause for a few moments here. So I'm going to try to stretch my leg as straight as I can. You might need to take the leg farther away from you, give yourself a little bit more room. If that doesn't work out, you can certainly try bending the knee. What we're trying to do is get the stretch to distribute all the way across the back of the leg, calf muscles, thigh, but not land right at the sit bone attachment. So not right where your hamstrings attach at your glute, but all the way through the whole leg. And again, you can kind of play with the rotation. You can certainly take the leg farther away and bring it in closer. And just take nice deep breaths. We're going to stay for about 4 more breaths. I put a block near my hip for this next part, so I'm going to drop my leg out to the side. That just gives me something to kind of push against, and it also keeps me from overdoing the stretch in my adductors. So you can, again, you can kind of play with rotation inward or outward, point the toes, flex the foot. We're just going for this kind of more inner thigh area. You could exert a little bit of abdominal stabilizing by kind of anchoring this left hip to the ground and squeezing in through the sides of the waist. And then hold and steady for some nice deep breaths. 4 more breaths here. Nice, deep, smooth breaths. Okay, so take a nice big breath. And then bring the leg back to the center, bend your knee. We're going to take that guy off of there. Oh. Now, leaving that knee in, we're going to bring the hands behind the head if you'd like that, or you can reach down towards your ankle if you don't need the extra neck support. Remember, we want to keep the neck in a relatively neutral position and do these little curls from the abdominals. Hovering that left leg, or you can rest it on the floor as you like, so it just depends on your particular situation. So curling in, then we're going to switch legs, reach through that right leg, curl in, and again we're trying to curl with the abdominals, keeping that neck nice and steady. Stretch out through that leg that's reaching away. Two more sets. Last set. Now, you can put your right foot back down, grab hold of that left leg, and then let the right leg stretch out long, or let it rest in that constructive rest position. Then we're going to spin the foot on this left side. Go in the opposite direction. And then pointed flex. So hugging in that leg. Again, we're going to go ahead and put the strap around the foot, or whatever you're using. Make any adjustments you need to. So we're feeling the stretch again all the way through the whole back of the leg, not centered right at that one attachment point. Oh, hey friend. Do 4 more breaths. Okay, so I'm going to take one more big inhale here, and then I'm taking my leg out to the side. Again, I'm going to anchor through this right side, kind of draw the sides of the waist in as I reach out, kind of press into the strap with my leg. Nice deep breaths, yogis. Breaths more. bring this leg back to the center. Take the strap away. And then you can take just a moment if you like and rest that leg. We're going to bring the legs up at some point, and then we're going to curl the torso up. And then again, trying to keep the neck in a neutral position. You might be able to do that and hold, bring your hands down by your shins, and then extend the arms and the legs. The idea is that we keep this curled up shape the whole time, and it just becomes harder to do. Now, if you tend to use your neck, which I can totally relate to, you can put your hands behind your head and just do the legs. So you can keep your head pressing back into your hands and that curl coming from your abdominals, or you can extend the arms and then just return, okay? So we'll keep going with these little extensions and then curling in and trying to maintain the torso exactly where it is. 3 more. 2. And 1. Now, you can put your head back down, and just for a moment, you can pause and do little windshield wipers with the legs, or you can just stretch out from fingertips to toe tips. Oh. I like a little bit of both. We're going to come to a seated position. So, you want to do a little rocking and rolling, you can do that. Or you can just get yourself to a seated position. So we're going to take the legs out so that they're like a little wider than the shoulders, maybe a little wider than the mat, but not necessarily as wide as you can go. So be a little bit conservative with the V, because we want to be able to sit up nice and tall. So if when you stretch your legs out wide, you tend to lean backwards in the pelvis, sit up on the edge of a blanket, and you can even bend forward a little bit and just send the sit bones back and see if that's helpful. So you can bend the knees a bit. I kind of dig in with the heels and engage the quadriceps, because that helps hold me nice and steady. We're going to take the arms out nice and wide, and then we're going to turn to one side for 3 little pulses. The idea being that we're pulsing from the abdominals just a little bit deeper each time, but keeping the arms aligned with the shoulders. So rather than letting the arms do the twisting part, we're going to let the abdominals do the twisting. 1, 2, 3, and center. Get a little taller. 1, 2, 3, center. 1, 2, 3, center. We're just finding the edge of this twist on that 3rd round. Where does it go? 1, 2, 3, and also a little bit rhythmic, right? 2, 3, 2 more sets. 1, 2, 3. My counting may not match up with yours, so do your counting. 3, 1 more time. Now hopefully we've given our hamstrings enough space with those straps that the saw will feel okay. So I'm going to reach back with one arm, turn my head to look back. The other arm is going to move towards the pinky toe. 1, 2, 3 little saws. Now if that feels like you're ripping your hamstrings, a couple of options. Bend your knees first of all. Second of all, don't go so far. 1. Third, you cannot do the pulse. You can just hold it for 1, 2, 3. Come back to the center. Get tall. Turn. 1, 2, 3. Come back. Straighten it out. 1, 2, 3. We're trying to move from the pelvis. So try to feel your pelvis going forward. 2, 3. However far it goes. See if you can keep your back nice and long. 2, 3, back to the center, nice and tall. Keep that height. 1, 2, 3, back to the center. 1, 2, 3. We're going to do 2 more rounds. 1, 2, 3. Nice lift. 1, 2, 3. Coming back to the center. It might have been 1 round. Well, however many it was. That's how many we're doing. All right, yogis. We're going to come up to all fours. So you can bring yourself around. Ugh. Now, just for a few moments, let's do some cat shapes. So we're going to round up. Oh. And then let the back kind of sway the opposite direction. You can add some kind of snaky moves side to side. Oh. Oh. Now we're going to do a level 1, if that's the right terminology, but we're going to do a most supported Frankenplank, right on? So first of all, Frankenstein, if you remember from any of the movies that feature Frankenstein, often makes a kind of groaning sound. I'm pretty sure that started with the first one, but in any case. So the first part of this is that you have to kind of groan a little bit, which generally lately has not been a problem. So we're going to groan a little bit, and then we're going to stagger. So we lift the left leg and the right arm, right leg, left arm, left leg, right, right leg, left, 2 more, stretch between those 2 limbs, Now, I don't know how excited you got with that, but it's kind of fun. All right, so if downward dog is not your jam, you can stay with this all fours position. Otherwise, we're going to take this into downward facing dog. And then give yourself a, kind of a movement in the shoulders a little bit, maybe a little bit of movement in the legs. You might do some hip shimmies. Now, there comes a point where you're kind of done with down dog, and that's fine. When you are, walk your hands and feet together, and then pause with the forward bend. Give yourself a little bit of just room to kind of shake out the wrists. Now, on Monday, we did a flow where I had some options for taking out the wrist action, and you can use those same options here with this flow that we're going to do now, by simply skipping the down dog plank, Frankenplank, back, upward facing dog, back to down dog and forward. You can simply step forward out of the standing sequence, all right? So that you do have that option in the event that your wrists are really tender today, because frankly, Frankenplank is a killer. But you can do that supported version as well on the hands and knees if you'd like to substitute that version in. All right, so find your mountain pose once you've gotten up on your feet, if you're not already there. And then just for a moment, just pause and feel. So we're going to lift up onto the toes, and you can sweep the arms out nice and wide if you want to. I'm going to have to be a little bit more narrow because of my plant arrangement. And then we're going to come down. So lift up onto the tiptoes, and then down. We're going to do that one more time. Lift up onto the tiptoes. Now, as you come down, grab hold of your left wrist. Give yourself a little stretch over to the right. We're going to take this left leg, bring it up. And then just holding that left leg up, we're going to try to take it back like we're going towards Warrior 3. And then bringing that leg back up if we can without falling over. And then taking it back like we're going to go to Warrior 3. Woo. Maybe you lose your balance, just catch it again, lift the leg up, and then we're going to step back into a Warrior 2. That worked out, I didn't break a tooth. All right, so just adjust the legs, keep the legs nice and steady. If this front leg starts to drop in, work the inner thigh, and then don't try to turn your hips quite so much. So we're going to come back to reverse, over to a side angle, stretch out nice and long, coming back. Moving as rhythmically as possible, like the snakes in Medusa's hair. Coming back. Coming over. Last one, coming back. Coming over. So we're going to come back to reverse. Straighten out the front leg, come into triangle pose. If you want to use a block for your triangle, you can certainly do that. You kind of press off against it. You can grab your ankle. Whatever's going to be the best option for you. Arm can come up. You could also wrap that arm behind your back. Sometimes I like that variation. Taking a breath. I'm going to just jiggle my feet just a little bit, so I like the spacing a little different for triangle. Taking one more big breath. Now we're going to bend the front knee. Reach out with the front of the right hand. So I've got right leg, right hand, and I'm going to use the block just as a support. We're going to pick this left leg up, take a half moon balance, and if you can do it, we're going to curl up. Moon goes behind the clouds, and then open it up. Howl the moon, bring it in. Moon go behind the clouds. Open it up. One more, bring it in. Open it up. And then you could step up to the top of the mat or come back to down dog. Oh. I like to just feel that. Now, Frankenplank level 2, which is just the legs. Oh, lift one. Oh, lift the other. Oh. 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 Then you can lower for your vinyasa. Choose an upward facing dog or cobra. And then taking it back. Taking a nice big breath. Lifting that right leg up behind you. Hook it over your back like a little scorpion. And then step that foot forward. Bring your left foot up to meet it. Come up halfway. Exhale, fold. All the way to standing. And then we're all together in a mountain pose. Taking a nice big breath. Pausing just to feel it. Inhale, tiptoes. Coming back down. Tiptoes. Coming back down. One more time, tiptoes. So we're going to grab that right wrist as we lower the heels. Stretch over in a little crescent shape. Coming back to center, picking up this right leg. Taking it back towards that warrior 3. Bringing it back. Maybe picking it up. Bringing it back towards that warrior 3. Once again, bringing it up. And then we're going to step it back into warrior 2. Maybe falling over in the process. So find your balance. Get your legs just right. Coming on back to reverse and over to side angle. So we're stretching through the sides of the waist as we do these 2 movements, trying to hold the legs nice and steady. One more time. All right, so turning this into a triangle. And again, you get to decide how you make your triangle just right. Take a nice deep breaths. So I spread out my toes, I kind of adjust my legs, I'm lengthening through my spine. At this point, I'm just kind of playing with my top shoulder blade, just drawing that in. So we've got a couple more breaths here. And then we're going to turn that into our howling moon pose. So I'm balancing, if we can, on the left leg. And then maybe you need like a little piece of furniture to hold on to with your hand so you can curl that knee in and stretch it out for a big full moon, right? Curl it in, maybe it falls, just catch, and then stretch it out. One more time. Sometimes I crack myself up. Big stretch. All right, so maybe you come to mountain pose. Maybe you come back to dog. All right. Now, friends, we're gonna try the full Frankenplank. It's hard. So we're gonna come forward right arm, left leg, oh. Left leg, right arm, oh. Well, the other way. I can't talk and do this at the same time. Oh. 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 Hopefully you're better at that than I am. It's been a while. Lower and down. Coming into cobra or upward dog. Oh. Taking it back to downward dog. Oh. That left leg goes up. Hook it over like a little scorpion tail. Step that foot forward. Bring your right one to it. Come up halfway. Exhale, fold. And come all the way up to standing. Oh. And we'll join all of our friends who might have been smarter than us and gone to mountain pose right up front. So just feel in your mountain. Take it a moment. So we're going to take ourselves into a little up on the tiptoes position and back down and up and back down and up and down. We're going to sit ourselves back into a chair. Oh. Okay, shift the weight into your right leg. Bring your left leg up and over, and then you might be able to hook the foot around behind. Take your left elbow under the right, and maybe you can hook the arms. And if this falls apart, catch. All right? So finding that steadiness as best you can. Oh, I have wobbly days for sure. Okay. So we're going to expand this eagle out. Oh, and step back and turn this into a wide angle. So all the toes are going to point to the side. We're going to take a moment and fold. As you fold, if you feel pinching in your hip joints or your knees, it could just be one or the other or both. You can turn the toes out a little bit and see if that helps, okay? So then continue to fold in however far that forward bend seems like it wants to go. So we're trying to bring the pelvis around with us. Stand strong in the legs. Release any tension from the neck. And for people who maybe downward dog is not the right pose because of the weight on the arms or whatever, you can kind of get a little down dog action here. So you want to stay up a little higher so your head stays higher than your hips. Use a couple blocks. Reach out and then just let the upper body find that kind of downward dog shape as you draw back through the hips. Okay, head between the arms. You go a little lower, closer to the ground, you'll feel a little bit more of that sloping sensation. Beautiful. Take one more breath. All right, so we can turn this into vinyasa if you want to go back to plank and that sort of thing, or we can just step it forward. Oh, and then come back to that chair shape. So you're doing the full vinyasa, just a regular standard vinyasa without our friend the Frankenblank. And then we're going to come all the way up to standing, give it a big stretch. And again, we're going to come up onto the tiptoes. So coming to the tiptoes and down, tiptoes and down. This is our last time really with this little balance challenge. Tiptoes, come into chair pose. And this is going to turn into the eagle, so it doesn't have to be a full chair, right? So weight on the left leg, right leg wraps, right arm underneath. Oh. Maybe there's a hook, maybe not. Holding as steady as we can. So then we're going to let our eagle kind of fly. Oh, and that's going to take us back to this wide space. I'm going to turn around just so it's easier. And you can turn around as you like. We're gonna turn the toes out a little wider so we can come into this wide squat. So we're gonna lift up nice and tall and then exhale down into this wide squat. And if you wanna kind of emulate Kali Ma, the Hindu goddess of sort of death and destruction, really what she is she's the emancipator of the downtrodden. But but the powers that be don't always see her that way. She's pretty scary looking. So come down, stick out your tongue, big exhale. Nice big inhale, big exhale. One more. Big stretch. Now we're gonna bring the legs a little closer together. And then folding forward. Eventually what we're gonna do is sit down into a squat. But you're gonna choose, maybe go back to that wider squat. Maybe you can get closer to the floor. So I'm gonna take a few breaths here. Now what happens next is we're gonna sit down. And some people can just simply sit down from the squat. I'm a little too far off the ground. So I could either put some blocks under me or I can just kind of get myself onto the floor. Okay, so we're gonna do my favorite boat pose. And I'm gonna give you some different levels with this boat pose, okay? So it's kind of a rowing the river Styx boat. So the first thing is that there's a tendency for us to kind of collapse. And so we're gonna try to keep the breastbone lifted, and we're gonna try to keep a kind of sense that we're drawing the abdominals into the center line as we do this boat. Now, first layer or level is to keep the feet on the floor. Make sure I've got enough room, I'm not gonna smack my head. So we're gonna come up to the center and then we're gonna row backwards into the boat pose. Come back to the center, rowing on the other side, backwards towards the boat pose. And this is a nice way to control the movement, right? So you've got the feet anchored to the floor and you're still doing that ab work. And again, we're trying to keep this kind of length in the spine. Now, if you care to, you can bring one leg up at a time. So as I row to the left, I'm gonna lift the right leg. Row into the right, lift in the left leg. Right? So rowing, and we're not in a hurry because we're going to the land of the dead. So no sweat here. Well, tons of sweat actually, but but not in a hurry. Last possibility is to do both legs lifted, and we're gonna take the legs up, lift, row. Maybe the legs extend. Maybe I just leave them lifting and row, okay? Or extend and row, extend and row. So choosing your options. Rowing out, rowing out. Hold with your abs. Okay, last one. Okay, so hopefully you found an option that worked for you. Take a moment, put your feet together, sit up nice and tall, and then I'm gonna let my back round like a little turtle shell here. Now, if you have any herniated discs or disc issues with your lumbar spine, don't round. Keep your back a little longer and just lean into it if your pelvis is willing to go. If you feel anything that feels pinchy or there's any sort of numbness or anything in the hips or the legs when you do this sort of a movement, definitely back off. For me, it feels really nice, but it does not always feel nice for everyone. Okay, so I'm not trying to go to an extreme. I'm just allowing my back to kind of round like a little shell. So now we're gonna do some side work. So we'll roll onto I'm gonna start with my left side. I need to move them a little further out. Okay, you can start on either side. I just am in position to do the left one here. So hips on top of hips, shoulders on top of shoulders. We're gonna start with hovering both legs if we can. If that's too much, definitely drop one leg to the ground. Still too much, bend that knee so you have a wider base of support. If you can hover both the legs, hug in through the sides of the waist and hold steady, do. It gives you a little bigger challenge. But if that's too much, like the question is, can I hold my torso stable? So we're gonna circle the top leg, and if it feels super duper wobbly, like your belly is weaving back and forth, then definitely lower that leg on the bottom, okay? So circle in that top leg, trying to hold steady through the sides of the waist. You can put your hand up front or on your hip or behind your ear, depending on how you want to set that up. Oh, so still circle in, 4 more, 3, 2, 1. So then we're going to pause for a moment, and we're going to rotate the legs inward toward each other. So the big toes are going to come toward each other, still hovering both legs if possible. I'm going to circle that top leg the opposite direction. Again, trying to maintain the stability. I find it harder with the internal rotation. It's not a big circle. So hug it in through the sides of the waist and just circle in that leg. Oh, can you feel your outer hip yet? 3 more, 2, 1. All right, coming down. So then just notice the sensation of putting your legs on the ground. And are you still gripping, or did everything just turn into softness? So we're gonna take the top legs, bring the feet back. Top leg, bring both feet back on both legs. And then we're gonna leave the knees resting on the floor this time and just lift the feet. So this is our setup for the little clams or the butterflies. You can call it either way. Maybe that's a butterfly, maybe it's a shell. And then we kick it out if you like. Bring the toes back, bring it back. Again, you can choose not to kick, you can just hover and then bring it back together. So either kicking or hovering and coming back. So we want to feel this musculature on this outer hip, just, ooh, delicious. 5 more. 4, 3, and try to move nice and smooth. 2 more. 1 more. And then we're going to come down, straighten out the leg. Take this top leg, you're going to hover it again and then just bring it forward. Now, you can leave it all the way straight, or you can put the foot on the ground, or you can bend the knee and rest the shin on the ground, side of the calf, whatever muscles it is. Take the bottom leg, lift it up. We're going to hug in the sides of the waist, and then lifting that bottom leg up just a little higher for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now lift that leg and just hold it for 10, 9. Don't let that side waist drop. 7, 6, 5, 4. Make sure your hips are still stacked. 2, 1. Bring that leg down. We're going to roll onto the back. Leave the legs wound around each other. Oh. All right, so I've got this right leg up on top of my left leg. My left foot is resting on the floor. And all that might happen is that I just stay like this. If you're up for it, we're going to do some bridge stuff. So we're going to roll up and come back down with the leg resting here on top, trying to keep the hips as level as possible. So first we're going to recruit the shoulders, get them in nice and snug, and then lift the hips and try to, oh, come on back down nice and slow. As best you can, 1 vertebrae at a time. All right, so hips go up, and then they snake back down. Hips go up, and then they snake back down. Alrighty, 1 more time. And then we're just gonna unwind both those legs. Do some little windshield wipers. Now we're going to spin this whole thing around to the other side. So if you need to stay kind of in the view of wherever your TV is pointed, device, whatever you're using, then spin around with me. If you can just take your phone with you to the other side, you can just roll over. Okay, so I've gotten myself aligned. Hips on top, shoulders on top of each other, lifting the legs, hug it in through the sides of the waist. Again, you can choose the option of not keeping that bottom leg hovered. And then we're going to circle this top leg. Trying to hold steady through the abdominals and not lose control here. 5 more. 4, 3, 2, 1. Bringing the legs together, turning the toes inward towards each other. I'm trying to internally rotate both legs, right? Still a little hovered, and then I'm going to try to circle the opposite direction. Now again, for me this is a much smaller circle, and I'm really working to contain this jiggle to keep my torso really stable and anchored. But oh boy, do I feel it. So holding steady for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, bringing the legs back together, bringing the feet behind. We're gonna leave the knees in contact with the floor, at least the bottom leg. Top leg is on top. So we're gonna lift, maybe extend, maybe just hover, bring the feet together, bring the knees together. Nice and smooth and steady. 5 more. I may have lost count. 4. Do as many as you can. 3, 2, and last one. All right. Oh, extend the legs. They were feeling kind of good, yogis. So the top leg comes forward in some fashion. And again, I just want to make sure that my hip doesn't roll backwards. I'm still, you know, hips stacked, shoulders stacked. And then I'm going to lift this bottom leg up and then pulse it 10, a little higher. 9, 8, 7. Lift the side waist as well. 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold, lift everything on that right side waist. Hug it in for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bringing that leg down and leaving the legs kind of bound around each other. We're rolling onto the back. Oh. Oh. And again, maybe all that happens is you just, stay there. Unless you want to do some of these little bridge poses with me. So we're going to leave that leg slung up on top there. We're going to lift, try to hold the hips steady. Oh, and then come down nice and slow. So when you're ready, the hips go up again. And then, just as best I can, trying to get my vertebrae to come down one at a time. Lift. I'm going to do one more. Lift. Come on down. And then when you get to the bottom, you get to unwind your legs. Maybe give yourself a little hug and a back massage. Oh, because that feels really nice. Because it's time for Shavasana, friends. And if there's ever a Halloween pose, corpse pose is the one. This is it. So if you're going to join me for this, cool, stick around. Maybe even put a pillow under your legs so your low back relaxes a bit more. And if you have to scoot off, make sure you leave me a little chat comment just so I know you're here and I can count you. Oh, stretch. Oh, stretch. Oh. And then snuggle in and relax, y'all. Oh. Letting the whole body get softer. Make sure that face is completely soft and relaxed. So the backs of the eyes are really soft, and the eyes take on a more kind of gentle, kind sense. Make sure your teeth are just slightly parted and the lips are really soft. Surrender as best you can through all of the muscles of the body. So what we're after here is that we can completely release any tension that we carry habitually. For some of us, it's a lot. So really trying to unwind yourself for these next couple minutes. Let's put it all down. We'll pick up all these burdens later, but right now we just get to be present. And if your mind starts to slip back to its little habits, just when you catch it, come back to softening in. So now just gently return your awareness to your breath. Just feel the body responding to the breath by gently receiving it and letting it go. And then take a nice deep breath all the way down to your tiptoes. Let go with a really big sigh. Give your fingers and toes a jiggle. Stretch them out. Give your wrist and ankles a little movement. And then stretch it out. Curl up in a ball. Give yourself a hug. And then when you're ready, bring yourself up. So thank you for joining me today for a little yoga Pilates fusion with a tiny bit of the Halloween sprinkle. Take a nice big breath and a big deep sigh. Namaste, beautiful souls.